What's up, everybody? Ian Walsh here, Hard Money Bankers. Today's show, we're doing, as many people have been following, a market makers, masters of the market type scenario of our local real estate market that really started back in March. We had started having people on, and that steamrolled on a weekly basis into a very shifting market. And it's really important that we find at this point that we have experts in front of us in the local market that have done a lot of transactions to let us know, give us comfort in the changing market. So I bring on Julie Hankins. Julie, thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. So I know we were just talking about your bio prior, but you're one of the few people that have done over 1,000 transactions. That's correct. That was accurate in the bio, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So that perspective to me is very important because there's nothing wrong with if you're doing 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 a year, whatever. But your window is very small as to what you can see. When you do 1,000 transactions over your career, you can feel the market, you can feel the shift, you can feel when things are changing, and that's a different vibe. So talk to us from like March until now. Where are we and where are we going? I know you did a lot with new construction as well.
Yeah. So just a little bit about my background. I
Yep.
started in real estate back in 2024, or I'm sorry, 2004. And I worked strictly for a builder. And in 2008-9, when the market was coming to a crash, I decided to hang my license with a small boutique brokerage, Homestart Realty. And I also decided to get involved in investing. So I've seen the market when it was really good. I've had a lot of experience working with multiple transactions at a time. And, when COVID first hit in 2020, it kind of reminded me of how bad things were in 2009, 10, 11, and just how tough things were. But the big difference between 2020 and then is the inventory. So here we are fast forwarding, we had really, really good interest rates for such a long time. Interest rates being even at the 4% mark from 2016, it's just we've had great interest rates. So when you had the interest rates as low as 2%, 2.5% on a 30-year fix, for them to now jump up to now, I think they're it's 7.5, 8.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm hearing that they're going to do more than that, more of a push. That's absolutely halting the market for sure, because we've been spoiled for so long on such good rates. And that's even just across the board with investors that I work with. Mm-hmm. When you've had interest rates so low for so long, where you could get in an LLC, you could easily get, 4.5% on a rental home, rental building. I saw them go out as a 10 unit that I have. I think we have a 3.5%. So it's a shock to not only your residential buyers, but then also your investors. And then, your second home buyer, they're like, well, I have a really great interest rate. Why am I going to sell my house to move into something where I'm going to have a much higher rate?
Yeah, I think right now. Yeah, and I think it was a historical situation. I don't know if you would agree with that, but I don't think we're going to see that again. And
no.
Because of that, we're going to have to deal with what the new market brings. And you raise an interesting point, which is the first time we've heard it on the show, which is, people that have a house now, they're going, why would I leave a 3%, 4% interest rate? Why would I do that? Which is going to cause logjam. And,
yes.
Purchasing power is down and they're going to move into something smaller.
Absolutely. And for builders right now, cost of lumber, it has gone up and down, and it's gone down recently, but it's going back up. You have so many construction costs that have just gone way up. The cost to build has increased significantly. You have delays, you have labor shortages, you have all these things that even a developer, a builder, they're looking and they're like, am I going to take on this risk? Because that used to be the cost to build used to be their stagnant. Okay, this is going to be our constant. We know what our subs are doing. We know that our numbers are here to build a 2,000 square foot home. And you just you don't have that constant right now. Now it's starting to ease up because yes, we need to increase interest rates, which I thought that was going to happen probably even before COVID happened. I was shocked that interest rates weren't getting up closer to 6% just to give us some normalcy. But I mean, when you have cost of construction is just not where it needs to be. So you have a lot of developers and builders that are questioning that part too.
Yeah, it's also a very good point. We've noticed that obviously for what I do from a private lending perspective, everybody's doing construction, right? So I see that. And where people say, hey, I can renovate this house for 30 grand. I'm like, in like 1985, I don't I don't know what to, because at this point it's 60 grand, 70 grand. Right. So, and you're right. I didn't really think of it the way you just said it, but a developer is they don't know how to project, right? They can't project a number. So they're like, I got to wait until I can, because otherwise I can't do a $10 million project that's going to be $15 million because I incorrectly projected. That's a big deal. So
correct.
That's another factor. How, and you're right about, I think the Fed said they're going to, so initially the Fed had said they were going to raise rates, and they were going to try to go for a soft landing where they were going to like raise and then cut and then raise and then cut. And they're going to try that, that whole thing. But then it's like, now it doesn't look so much. And they specifically recently targeted, they said they need to cool the housing market off specifically, which is never something you want to hear in a Fed meeting. What do you think is coming down the road?
I mean,
just say it.
Yeah. Like there's not a lot of inventory to begin with. So cooling it off, you're going to put it to a halt. Like it's in my mind, and you're going to have a lot of investors right now because people are concerned with the stock market. We've been spoiled as investors. We're used to seeing 15+% on a rate of return, and that's going to be a tough thing to swallow too for the next couple of years. I don't think we're going to be seeing those such large of returns.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I just think a lot of people are sitting back, seeing what's happening. Is it still a good time to buy? I know from like watching some of your other segments, it absolutely is. I don't want to be the doom and gloom person. Sure. Everything in real estate cyclical. We all have to go through it. I think this is what we're going through because rates have been so low for so long. And when I say like I don't even think even before COVID, rates ever went above into 5%. Yeah,
I don't think there's ever a bad time to buy. I think there's a time when you have to be smart when you buy, right? That's my kind of because I'm going to be honest, and what's about to happen and what's coming, and you saw it in 2008 and 2009, everybody that over leveraged running into 2008 and 2009, and then we're just buying houses, not understanding comparable sales. When the buck stopped, it just took all their houses away. So, but also during 2008, during the crash was actually when I jumped in the business, not knowing any different. I just, whatever, it was real estate. So I got in. That was also where I met some of my strongest contacts to this day. And I was like, man, these guys are coming out and they're buying everything they can get their hands on. I mean, I had guys I was wholesaling properties to that it was just like a weekly vendor thing, but nobody else was buying. All these guys were losing
in 2020. Yeah. As soon as COVID hit, it was like, okay, what can I get my hands on? What can I buy? Because we see the market shift.
Yeah, right. The only thing with COVID, which was an anomaly, which is a weird anomaly, super strange, was how fast it went up and down. It was like lights off, lights on, and it was too quick. So you didn't actually feel the pain. You felt it a little bit, but not really. This is a little different. This is going to take time, and time, I think, will bump up against pain. When pain and time meet each other, it's a longevity thing. And then anybody that's been carrying heavy overhead costs are going to really have to, hopefully you've been running lean up until this point. Right. And then, but then I know, one of the things I say is like the most millionaires that you don't know are about to be made, and you will know them in this next cycle right now, because they're going to come out and they're going to buy everything they can get their hands on, at the right time. And I think that time I don't think it's right now. I think it's coming. So it's not doom and gloom. It's just change. It's just all it is. Yeah. And it's being able to be flexible to move with the change instead of staying narrow-minded and what you're used to. Right. What are you seeing with your clients? Are any of them like shifting their approach, like their strategy at all? Or are they still just standing by, or? Yeah. So one of my largest clients is River Wards Group.
do a lot of stuff with them. It's funny, we kind of grew together in that 2009-8 era,
Okay.
and they've just continued to develop in the Philadelphia area. And even though there's been a ton of changes happening in Philadelphia, they're staying true to Philadelphia. Um, but a lot of changes that I'm just seeing is because I have more investors. It's I'm getting those calls. Hey, Julie, what are you seeing? What do you think?
Yeah.
What's happening? People are a bit more hesitant on things. And as far as days on market, like we're now in the suburbs because I do Montgomery County, Delaware, mainline, the surrounding counties of Philadelphia, and I'm starting to see more days on market for sure.
Hmm.
Um, I'd seen a slowdown in March for buyers and sellers where, okay, instead of having, competing against 20 other offers, you're now down to under 10. And
Yep.
then that number slowly dropped to, okay, you're now down to under 5. Homes, though, were still going above asking price in the suburbs. And I still think that is true because the suburbs had kind of lagged behind Philadelphia on value for a while there before COVID. And they are now, they're now catching up. If not, now they're exceeding where pricing was in 2008 when the crash had happened. So
Yeah. I think that, I mean, a stop and turn in the market. Everybody was still on our show for a while. It was like in the middle. It was like people were like, all right, the city slowed down, but the suburbs are still going. So like a stop and turn isn't typically, it's not just like a hard right turn unless it's like COVID.
right.
It's, it's like the ball is thrown. There's some momentum. There's some inertia. It's still going, but you're like, wait a minute, things aren't making sense. Things aren't making sense. And then it all catches up. I think one thing though, at this point, so I run my comps now when I'm evaluating properties before 2020. I think we're going to look back on this moment in time and realize that 2020 to 2022-ish was like fake. Was just fake buying, fake money, fake everything. So
Money was free almost.
It was, but that's the thing. It was just fake. It was just
so
not
cheap.
real.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, buying pricing was not real. So I'm not even sure if 2019 or 2018 is correct, but I do know at least there was like not the frenzy at that point. And
no. And in parts of the city, you still had, there's still values that are holding. Like there's certain sections of the city, especially your fringe areas.
Yeah.
They didn't get the huge, upheaval in value in 2021. Not at all.
I'd like to take credit for the next statement I'm about to make, but I can't. But I don't know who told me, so I'm going to partially take credit for it.
Okay.
So,
all right.
When somebody, I was explaining one time, this was like, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, but like, when an area like a fringe area develops, right? Usually it starts like in a center, like a ripple in a pond, and then it goes goes out. But the first ones that get crushed are on the outside are those last ripples, they're the least strong. And then as it condenses, you're going to find out where the real value is as it comes back together. It might have actually been Alan Dom that said that. It might have been Alan Dom.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
And I do remember back in 2008 or 2009 when people were getting hammered, there were certain areas of the city that I was seeing this happen. Like you were seeing these, I remember seeing like, there were some like overseas Russian investors coming in and they were just buying all this stuff. I'm like, how do they know something about values that I don't? And I was like, oh, they have no idea what they're doing. They just have a bunch of money and they're buying a bunch of stuff. And then you never hear from them ever again because they lose it all. And because they were on the fringe areas, they were on the edge of Brewery Town. They were on the edge.
I was just going to say Brewery Town was supposed to hit its like height shortly right around when the crash happened. Like Brewery Town took for a really, really long time. And it's still, it's still kind of fringe-ish, if you want to say, depending on where you are, but it has taken a while to turn that community around.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, so the one thing I've definitely noticed from just being in the MLS with fringe areas in general, and I get it, like the bang for your buck is very tempting for an investor, but it's not proven ground. So they're trying to you go a block over, they paid 30 grand and sold it for 400. And you're like, oh my gosh, how do you do that? Because it's not a proven block yet. Whereas like everything else, you have to buy at 200, put 100 in, and then you can sell it at 400. So when you're buying at 30 and buying at 20, it's very tempting to be out there until the music stops. And then, you're just washed out. So I get the temptation, but it just depends on your appetite. Like some people like to be cowboys. They like to hit home runs. Cowboys or cowgirls and hit home runs. And some people prefer to hit singles and doubles.
Right.
So it depends on your appetite, but that's what I've noticed about fringe areas was that like when you start going into those areas where you're comping and you're like, somebody bought that for 30 grand and they're selling it for 400, you're in a fringe area. You're in an area that's unproven. You got lucky and the market will correct you at some point, or you make your millions and leave. So
correct. It becomes one of those things where you're like, all right, either you want to, even if you're doing a buy and hold you're still holding it a short time.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know. Like I did a flip with a partner in Mayfair early this spring. And I was like, we got to be in and out. Interest rates are changing. We have to be in and out. And so we only held on to it for, I want to say it was like 4 months total. But, other areas when the market was good, and I have a tendency to buy new construction, hold on to it, rent it out, and in a couple years sell it because, hey, you can sell it off as a tax abatement and wait for everything else to be built.
Yeah.
That's around you. Now it's kind of that strategy for me as an investor. I'm kind of looking at it like, what am I going to buy right now? I might continue to lend because I lend as well, but it becomes one of those things that you just, I don't know, you're trying to feel where the sweet spot is again.
Right. Well, I mean, I talk to my partners about on a day-to-day right now. I'm like, the only comp we really have at this moment is cash. And what do I mean by that? I guess from where we stand is like, you're bringing more cash to the table to make me comfortable with the deal because I don't really know what this value is going to be. I can take a pretty good shot at it, but so what we've seen a whole lot more of is if you want to do the deal, you're going to bring a lot more cash or put a lot more skin in the game. And we've had a lot of clients because a lot of the lenders have shut their doors. Like almost all of them are out of business. Like any of the big institutional ones, they say they're in business, but they're not really doing business. The banks have closed their lines. Banks have left the business. So unless you're a private lender, you're not really accessing that. So, we've had plenty of deals where people, we put up $500,000, they put up $500,000. Whereas before 2021, it was like, can I get him for 5% down? And it's like, no. And they're like, well, XYZ Capital just did that for me. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I can't do that kind of risk because XYZ Capital and that whole crew for the next 2 or 3 years, they're about to hit the pain stride where they're about to take back a whole lot of properties they did a whole bunch of loans on. And they're not going to be searching for new business. They're not going to have lines. And, this is where, from a lender's perspective, your underwriting is really important. And cash is our comp at this point.
Yeah.
A big part of it. So I don't know if you experienced that with your lending. I didn't know you lend either.
Yeah. I try to diversify, if you want to say, within the real estate industry.
Sure.
I don't really do stock too much because I don't know enough about it. So, again, when I got involved in investing in 2008, I found all the different networking groups that were involving with investors. And so, I got into doing some lending and just kind of dabble in a little bit of everything. Everything on real estate, right?
Sure.
But it's interesting because yes, the times where you can only put, I'm going to put, let's say 10% down on what I'm buying. As an investor, that's not there as much. You need to put more down because, to your point, if you're going to be lending a good amount, you're going to want them to put more down. It all comes down to the ratios too.
Correct. And I think it's responsible action in the marketplace from a lender's perspective. Like, you really shouldn't be doing 5% lending because everybody's going to get hurt. Like, you're going to get hurt. Your borrower's going to get hurt. It's irresponsible lending. I'm not here to like crucify anybody because I get the human nature temptation of it. But it creates a headache. So I don't think it was as like flagrant maybe as it was in like 2007, 2008, but and
I feel like your first time home buyers, if there's anything that they're really getting crushed right now, because
of the money they need to bring to the table.
Because in 2021, beginning of this year, I mean, just them even being outbid because you have a seller that wants to see, I want them to waive all cash. But if they don't even have a cash, even though they're getting a mortgage, let's be honest, they were waiving it because even if it appraised below, they were still going to bring the money because, again, interest rates are so low. But even now, as we move forward, pricing has gone up, will that adjust? I think it's going to adjust, but I don't think we're going to see a huge downturn the way we did in 2008-9. I think it's going to be more of like a slow, a slow decline, like a plateau
I
to
was
then
hoping that
slow
wasn't going to be the
decline.
case. I rip
That's what I'm
where I
thinking.
stand, just rip the Band-Aid. Like, I don't want to sit in that for 3
But
years, 4 years. I don't want to
I
do that.
I see that just because we have an inventory problem. If we didn't have an
Okay.
inventory problem, then it'd be a little different. I sat in on a GPAR Zoom meeting with Dr. Yoon, who's national um, realtor economics guy. He's vice president, COO of National Realtor Association, and he does stuff every year. I can't wait to listen to Dr. Kevin Gillen speak,
Kevin,
which
yeah,
he normally
Kevin's a
does.
wizard. Yeah.
Yeah, just to see what his take is on the Philadelphia market. But his thought again, it comes down to the inventory. We still have an inventory issue, and unless builders are somehow given, I don't want to say given, but there needs to be the cost to build in Philadelphia has gone up since
Hmm.
2019. Like, you have so many more, not only taxes and the cost itself between subs and materials and everything like that, but it has gone up. So if you don't know where the numbers are going to land, and you don't know if your pace to sell these homes that you're building are going to even reach that. At one point you want to have, okay, we want to sell 4 homes a week. Great, no problem. We got to stick with that pace to be able to have the 80 homes that we need to sell for the year. Where are we going to get these 4 homes a week, these 4 buyers a week, when interest rates are, in our mind, high, but when they were at 18%, the normal purchase price was under 100,000. The average purchase price. So there's, and I don't think salaries have gone up that much more from the 1980s to now to compensate for that change in value. Like, real
No,
estate has
there were
increased, and it's great, but
there was
it's going
a
to be hard for the first
solution
time
that was
buyer.
proposed. I think it was Sam O'Keefe was on our show, mentioned it to me. I think like 6 months or 5 months ago or something. Because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
what do we do? I was like, because you
Right.
can't. The inventory is going to be a real problem.
Yep.
Like, I'm not convinced that the economy's still going to, like, I think we're moving over to a digital money currency in the very near future anyway, but that's a whole different show. So, but there was a very good solution proposed that I thought, which could really kick the can down the road for quite some time, which was, and I guess they started doing it in Atlanta, which are 50-year mortgages. And I was like, oh my
Okay.
gosh, that would solve the problem, because you could increase price again. You could, because ultimately this comes down to what you can afford and what your
It's
mortgage
monthly
payment
payment.
is. It's always
Correct.
monthly
What's your
payment.
monthly payment? 100%.
So if you go 50, 60-year mortgage, 100 people do 100-year land leases and stuff. I mean, it's
Yeah.
insane, but
I
it's a
think at
possible
one
solution.
point, I remember talking to, your normal conventional lenders. They had said something about like a 40-year mortgage had been pushed
Right.
out at one point, and it just never took.
It never took. It
Um,
never had to, though, because we were in such low interest rates. Why bother? But
correct.
now it might be a solution because I don't see anything else that's going to do it. I don't know if you
Yeah.
do.
No, because you bring up a great point, because for interest rates to be healthy, they need to be in that 7, 6,
Yeah.
7, 8% mark.
Yeah. That's
Like I
right.
said, I've been waiting for a while, and now it's happened, but we have an inventory problem.
Yep.
And that's because we have an inventory problem. That's why I don't feel like pricing is going to go down all that much.
I guess it depends how hard,
And it depends on the area too, you know?
area and how much of an abrupt halt the Fed can put on buying power, because they're still feeling, like that momentum, that inertia is still going against the grain of buying power right now. So
Yeah.
there's still people out there buying, because there's still people coming from the smoke screen and the frenzy of COVID but there's
Yep.
a whole different shift in the whole world right now, which is um, working mobile, right? After COVID,
Yes.
everybody goes, wait a minute,
Oh,
I don't have to live here anymore. So you have like people from California coming to Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. So like you have this crazy shift going on too. So
well, and
that
that's
changes demand.
correct. And that's a huge opportunity for Philadelphia, because Philadelphia is a very affordable city in comparison to the surrounding major cities that we have.
Right. That's
I
very
mean,
true.
I've
Yeah.
been seeing for a while people from New York wanting to live in Philadelphia and just taking Amtrak up to New York. So, you know, I feel like that's going to come more and more and more because Philadelphia is so affordable. My hope for Philadelphia is that we try to get our safety under control. So it's, because that's a whole other subject there.
I think we will. I mean, you have a mayor that literally just said, I don't want to deal with this anymore. So I think as he gets there'll probably be some pushback, where it'll come in maybe a little stronger than maybe people wanted. But I mean, there was a point when it was very safe. There was a point when it was not very safe, like 20 years before that, once upon a time, Germantown was 50 or 60 years ago was like the highlight place to live. So the market's always like moving, right? So I think that'll come back. I do think that'll come back. And, maybe Philadelphia ends up being that gem between, where people from around the country ended up saying, I'm going to move here because of the affordability. Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, there's like a huge exodus from California at the moment into like Pittsburgh and those areas. And because
Pittsburgh's even, because I'm a native Pittsburgh.
Are you? Okay. Yeah. My wife is, she's coming home from Pittsburgh right now. So yeah, we're very, very familiar with Pittsburgh. That's for sure.
What part of Pittsburgh?
Like McMurray, Washington area.
Okay. All right. I'm more Irwin, McKeesport area.
Okay. Her family's
Greensburg.
They have a local dairy farm, so Marchizak Farming. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So
I'm not. We're digressing, but
yeah. So
Pittsburgh has always even been more affordable than Philadelphia.
That's right. Yeah, it doesn't have the luxury though of like train ride to DC, train ride to New York. But I don't know it's that necessary anymore. I just don't know that I think it's that necessary that you have to be a train ride to physical stops. I think COVID showed everybody. They're like, you could pause and go, wait, I don't have to come to the office every day. And that changes everything.
Yeah, look at what we're doing now.
Yeah, right. This is my office. Yeah, I'm in my office. I know.
I was like, am I going to meet you guys in person for this podcast? Are we going to?
I haven't done an in-person podcast in like 2 years. Like, no kidding.
How are we doing it?
Yeah. Right. So, well, this has been very informative. I never know who I'm going to talk to and what we're going to talk about when we get on, other than I know it's real estate, but I never know like what they know, and I can kind of sense it out. And you're obviously extremely astute at what you do in this business. And I think anybody watching this, in the investment business in the Philadelphia and surrounding areas, Delaware, Montgomery County, as you mentioned, we've been scrolling your email on the bottom for the show. So that would be a really good way to contact you if you're a buyer or seller, but you clearly understand what's going on. Like you clearly get the picture. I don't think that's disputable here. So I appreciate it. And we will be, this will go out and we'll be in touch in the future.
Yeah, perfect. If anybody needs to get in contact with me, I'm with Brent Selleck Real Estate. I have my own team, NCQ team. And you can either email me or give me a call at 484-368-4558. Help out investors, first-time home buyers, developers, whatever you want to say.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And your email scrolls across the bottom. So if you didn't catch any of that, either rewind it a little bit or look at the bottom of the screen and you can email Julie directly. So that's awesome.
All right. Ian, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.